Good evening, hockey fans. Foster Hewitt's not available tonight to do his regular NHL broadcast because he's in Krefeld, Germany for the World Hockey Championship game between Canada and the defending champion Russians. It was March the 6th, 1955, and for this momentous event, Canadians were once again gathered around the radio and Foster Hewitt's play-by-play. The CBC's Steve Douglas was calling a game for a film camera in the press box, but Canadians weren't going to be able to see that for several days as a newsreel in the local theater. Canada's hopes rested with a 4-year-old team from the Okanagan Valley, the Penticton Vs, named after 3 strains of peaches grown in the South Okanagan. Seems like such a delicate name for such a bunch of hard rocks from the interior. But the call of "Go Vs Go" was adopted by the whole nation, who'd soon learn that V stood for victory. Tonight we examine the wonderful story that is the world champion Penticton Vs. Our storyteller was a member of the team. He wore number 5, Kevin the Crusher Conway.
Here's Conway with it now at his own blue line. He is playing with Perella at defense.
A hard-nosed defenseman with a body check that ground down the opponent and a blistering slap shot from the point. The story of the Penticton Vs tonight on Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Welcome to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with a member of the world champion Penticton V's hockey team, Kevin Conway, known as Crusher Conway back in the earliest days. Kevin, my interest in finding out, how does a team get built in Penticton that can be the world champion? Where did you come from?
First of all, Mike, thank you very much for inviting me. And Penticton became known to most of us young fellows at that time. We were all about 22 years of age. Most of the players came from training camps, and they were cut loose, and they wanted to continue to play hockey. So Penticton was opening up a new team under the coach by the name of Bill Carse, and that's how most of the fellows got to Penticton in 1951.
Now, this was called the Mainline Okanagan Senior Amateur Hockey League.
That's right.
So this is senior hockey, and this is the best senior amateur hockey you can get below the pro ranks.
That's right. See, in those days, there was only 6 teams in the National Hockey League. And the rest of the teams, like the Western Hockey League Canucks, which I came from, along with several of the guys, Ivan McClellan, Ernie Rux, Dickie Warwick, Don Barry, they'd all tried out for some team in that Western Hockey League, and they didn't make it, so they were shipped out, and Bill Carse was looking for some new players for the new team.
But when somebody says to you, Penticton, and you've come from the Montreal Junior Canadiens to the Vancouver Canucks, and somebody says, listen, you're going to have to find a place to play hockey, and you say, where?
Well, Coley Hall called me into the office one day on my 2nd year with the Canucks and said, Crusher, you're just not going to make it. So my advice to you would be there's only 2 places to play. First of all, it's in the National Hockey League, and you're not going to make it. Number 2 is a small town somewhere where you can go and play hockey as a sideline. Was that what you want to do? I said, that's what I want to do. Well, he says, Bill Carse is looking for a defenseman up in Penticton. I says, where is Penticton? And he said, it's about 250 miles up in the interior of British Columbia. And he says, they just opened a new highway called the Hope-Princeton Highway. I says, that's where I'll go.
You're 5'10", 200 pounds, built like a fire plug. You'd only been playing hockey since you were 17 years old. You weren't one of these sort of juvenile starters.
No, I was quite fortunate to get a tryout with the Verdun Cyclones when I was about 18. And Gump Worsley was my roommate, and we didn't win anything that year, but the following year, Sam Pollock of the Montreal Canadiens picked me up to play for the Junior Canadiens, along with fellows like Dickie Moore and Donnie Marshall. And we went on to win the Memorial Cup that year, so I was quite fortunate.
So this was quite a come down for you. I mean, how did you stay positive?
Well, I knew that I was quite lucky to get as far as I did, and being able to turn pro with the Vancouver, and had gone to the New York Rangers training camp twice at Saranac Lake, New York. And I said, gee, you know, if nothing happens from here on in regards to hockey, I've really been lucky.
Something more was going to happen.
It certainly was.
Now, the Warwick brothers, it started with one and ended up with three, but of the Warwick brothers were some of the best in the NHL during the war years.
Well, Grant Warwick was the Rookie of the Year in the National Hockey League when he was with the New York Rangers back in 1944, I believe. And there was only 6 teams then, and they only carried about 14 players per team. You know, 4 defensemen and 9 forwards, that's all they carried. And for Grant, yeah, he was some type of a hockey player.
Why didn't he make it there when he was the Rookie of the Year? Was he just too small? What was?
Well, he was quite small, but some of those teams were very, very strict in those days in regards to living habits and everything else. And Grant always said that if he'd kept his nose a little cleaner, but he did play some type of hockey.
Came to the, well, his brother came here, and then the 2 brothers, and then the 3 brothers to Penticton.
Dickie was the first one here in the first year in '51, and then Billy came, and then they got, the city of Penticton got behind the new, all the directors to raise, I think it was $3,000 to buy his contract from Buffalo and reinstate him as an amateur, and then he took over as the playing coach from Bill Carse on the Allen Cup year, '54.
So we're talking, the start of the Penticton V's is 1951, and it doesn't even have an arena yet.
That's right. They had difficulty in getting the construction of the arena. They had some union problems, even back in those days. But they did have it ready for October 26th for the original game, first game.
And that first year, 51, 52, those...
We didn't win anything.
Nothing? Well, 15 games or something?
All we won was the hearts of the fans of the Okanagan Valley, and especially the city of Penticton.
Here's this team that's put together out of guys who didn't know one another. In its first year, does nothing. In the second year, goes to the Allen Cup playoffs.
Yeah, it was, I'd say Bill Carse had a lot to do with that first 2 years of hockey. He never did get enough credit. It just seemed that when the Warwicks, the 3 boys, came in and took over, that Bill was just left sitting, and it's very unfortunate because he did a tremendous job those first 2 years.
So Carse was out,
Carse
the Warwicks were in, a playing coach.
That's right. And, you know, and when you get 3 brothers like that, and it was great. You know, there was great playing with them. We all stuck together. Some of our practices were tougher than most of our games.
Going to take a break here, but be back in a minute, because what was the reaction to, because the teams that were playing in this league were Vernon, Kelowna, Penticton, Kamloops. What was the nature of the competition that went on between these guys? We'll talk about that right after this break.
More homecoming celebrations for the Allen Cup winning Penticton V. And friends, have you been to Grove Motors to see the brand new 1955 Oldsmobile?
Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Kevin Conway of the Penticton V's. Before we talk about the 1953-54 year, the big Allen Cup year for you, we've got to talk about the nature of the competition between you in Penticton with the Kelowna Packers. It was the Packers at the time.
That's right.
The Vernon, what was the Vernon's team?
Canadians.
Canadians. It was vigorous, to say the least.
The rivalry between Kelowna and Penticton was so intense that they'd get 300, 400, 500 people from Penticton come up to Kelowna, and vice versa for their Friday and Saturday night home games. And the ferries were sure kept busy in those days.
That's right, because you had to cross the lake on the ferry boat?
Right, that's right. And even, you know, the fans hated us at Kelowna, but the workers on the ferries always waited. If we were on our way home from Kamloops and they were going to be a little late for the ferry, they always waited for us to take us home.
You had a special police constable in Vernon who loved you.
Mel Lamounty used to parade us through, escort us through Vernon on our way to Kamloops and meet us on the way back.
That was the kind of, now what kind of fan support was there? How many people did you cram into these arenas?
Well, in Penticton, you know, they tell me that night, at the Allen Cup night, there was 4,800 people in there and a couple of thousand more standing outside. That might be a little exaggeration, but you're looking at 3,500 anyway.
And in the Kelowna Arena, which was heralded...
It used to be just packed. They used to be hanging from the rafters.
And when you think about these towns, I mean, the Vernon and Kelowna arenas were built in '48, but the '51 was the Penticton
That's
arena.
right.
You had the nicest arena of the three spots.
At that time, yes.
And it was packed and rocking the whole time.
All the time.
How did people get to these games? Why did they take you to heart so quickly? I mean, there wasn't an affluent time when you could afford tickets willy-nilly.
Well, it just seemed that the people that lived here in those days were orchardists and farmers, and they didn't have really a lot to do during the winter. And here, all of a sudden, this hockey came in, and they loved it. It was a rough, tough sport, and played the way hockey should be played, really, back in those. Because the '50s, really, that was the best hockey that was ever played. It deteriorated as the leagues got bigger and more teams in the National Hockey League, and sort of watered down the hockey. I mean, this league here had some tremendous hockey players. George Agar from Vernon, Jim Middleton from Kelowna, Brian Roach, Mike Durbin. Hey, these guys were good hockey players. Frank King from Vernon. They should have all been in the National Hockey League, but there was only 6 teams then.
So you had great hockey players playing right here.
That's
in fact, you were lucky to get out of the Okanagan zone. I mean, it might have been easier playing against the other teams you met in Canada.
Well, Allen Cup year, their first series was against Vernon, and it was the best out of 5, and they had us down 2-1, and we had to win two in a row. That was probably the toughest. If we hadn't knocked them off, nothing would ever happen. And then we beat Kelowna out, and I think it was 6 games, and then on to Nelson, went the full shot. Winnipeg went 8 games. So we just seemed to win the hearts of everybody because we were always behind.
When it comes finally down to playing that for the Allen Cup against the Sudbury Wolves, 1954, you're playing in April, May.
That's right.
It's hot in the Penticton Arena.
It sure as heck was.
The home games were played in Penticton, so you were the home team in Penticton.
Right. The 7th game, it went 7 games, so the 7th game was in Penticton. The 6th game was up here at Kelowna.
So you didn't have to travel all the way back to Sudbury. They were all out west.
No, they were all out west.
And so Sudbury comes out ready for a week's stay. Well, they figure, what, are they going to wrap it up in 4? Who is the Sudbury Wolves team?
Well, a fellow by the name of Max Silverman, who was the mayor and he owned half of Sudbury, he bought these players, Frank King and Orv Laval, who were great hockey players, and he wanted to go to Europe in 1955, so he had to come out and knock us off first. He had the plane all ready to go on the Tuesday night, and all they had to do was tie that game.
And they'd have won it.
They'd have won it.
So the plane is what, parked down on the airport in Penticton?
Down at the airport, full of champagne and beer and sandwiches, but they were a little stale by the time they went home on Sunday without anything.
Because you guys had to come from behind in that series as well.
That's right. We had to win 3 in a row, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. They thought they'd knock us right off on Tuesday night, but they didn't. We had to come up to Kelowna on the Thursday, and we won that game here. I think it was 6-4. It was one tough game. And then back to Penticton for May 15th, which was the Saturday night.
And that's when you dumped the Wolves.
That's when we dumped the Wolves, 3-2.
Now, I've got actual headlines. These are the actual newspapers of the time from those days. And you might expect the Penticton Herald to have a big headline. But I would say that that is doomsday size headline, 1954 Allen Cup champs, right there. That is the full front page of your Penticton Herald.
That's it.
Here we've got another newspaper. This is the Vancouver newspaper. Penticton takes Allen Cup 3-2 win over the Wolves. The Vancouver News Herald. All of Penticton goes completely berserk to mark home team's capture of the Allen Cup. The Vancouver Sun puts out an entire section on your win of the Allen Cup. And it strikes me that the Sudbury Wolves were a pretty decent bunch of guys.
Oh, they were. They were.
Because they put out, proud of the team's great try, and it shows them clubbing all of their other teams. Down on the bottom, it shows Penticton, cartoon, holding the Allen Cup, and the Wolves canned in Penticton, and away you go.
Just great. I just love it every time I look at it.
Canada really loved its senior hockey in those days.
It was great. It was great hockey. The people all across the country would just jam the arenas in Winnipeg and Montreal, Quebec City, Shawinigan Falls, all those little towns, the Maritimes. It was great hockey.
But here's this little town that people probably hadn't even heard of, Penticton, winning it all.
That's right.
Was the secret? What, in your mind, was the secret to the Allen Cup win?
Well, I think that we practiced very, very hard. Most of our games were a little easier than some of our practice because the guys were, we used to, you know, sort of fight amongst ourselves until we got on that ice and we played as the team. Then we all stuck together. I mean, it was just unbelievable, the
Camaraderie?
the camaraderie we had between all the guys.
Having a goaltender like this Ivan McClellan,
Ivan was just one fabulous goaltender.
he played how many games in your Allen Cup year?
I think it was 101 games we played, and he played every one of them. Yes, he was. Today's
How come
day,
he didn't
Ivan
have a game? How come he didn't have an NHL team? Where
Well, in those days, they just carried one goaltender, and they'd bring another goaltender up. Now they carry 3 or 4, but in those days, you were lucky if they'd carried, Montreal Canadiens carry one goaltender, 4 defensemen, and 9 forwards, and the rest were all down in the semi-pros, and that's the way it should be today, too.
yeah. Take a break because the World Cup is coming up. The little Penticton Vs, not the little the great Penticton Vs are heading off to Germany, 1955, February. Picture that before there's jet travel and all of this kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that right after this break.
Out to Warwick, to Doug Kilborn, shoots, oh, backhander over the goalie's head. We'll take a commercial break here and come back with more of the Penticton Vs on Pioneers and Places.
Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Kevin Conway. Even after you win the Allen Cup, the qualifier for the going to the World Championships, not everybody in Canada thinks this is the team to go.
The Canadian Amateur Hockey Association wanted a team from the East to go, but or to improve the Penticton V's team by picking up some other players, semi-pros or whatever. But Grant Warwick said, no way, we go as a team or we don't go at all.
That's pretty strong, and he was able to pull it off.
He was able to pull it off.
When you're leaving from Montreal, heading over to Europe, what's the reaction?
Several friends of mine, because I had played my junior hockey there, had said, why are you spoiling a Memorial Cup team that you were on, an Allen Cup team you were on last year? Now you're going to go over there and get waxed by the Russians? Why are you going? And I asked them to promise me to be there when they get back. Win, lose, or draw. They were there amongst another 25,000 people.
With a win. So now, is there any nervousness about going over to Germany? Because you're going over to Germany where the World Cup is being held this year.
We were all really scared. We really didn't know what we're going to do. And, you know, it was only 10 years after the war. And, you know, and they're still cleaning up over there in Germany. And you don't know if there's any bomb. There's all kinds of things. We were told the food wasn't very good, which turned out it was not so.
So the nervousness was placated when you got there?
That's right.
Now, when you went into this place, this hockey house in Krefeld, was it Krefeld? Krefeld, Germany. Huge place.
Yes, the biggest one, that was the first game, was in Dortmund, Germany. I think it sat for 100,000 people, but it was for racing. And they had a corner of the arena, it was a little rink sitting down there, and they had about 12,000 people sitting around there. And that's where we played our first game against the U.S., and we beat them 11-1.
No contest.
No contest.
You had to play everybody, and by the time it came to the Russians, how many games had you played?
8.
8?
Yeah.
Now, the Russians had gone undefeated, you'd gone undefeated.
That's right.
What did you know about the Russians by this time?
We didn't scout them at all. They had scouted us, watching us play against the Finns and the Swedes and Czechs, but we hadn't gone to see them play at all. And so the first time we saw them was that night when we got on the ice before that game.
Now, looking at the headlines there, they talk about these hoodlum Canadians, the thugs, the roustabouts, the gas house gang. You sounded like a dangerous bunch of ruffians.
We really weren't, you know. I mean, we played it tough, yes. We played it tough on the ice, and everybody behaved themselves very, very well. And Andy O'Brien was with us, and anything and some of these other reporters wrote about us, he stuck by us, and he said we were all great gentlemen.
There were criticism that you weren't very good ambassadors. I don't know whether you thought I'm over there to be an ambassador,
No,
did you?
We went over there to win the cup, to win the World Hockey Championship.
And at the end of 3 periods of hockey, 5-0.
We had done it.
Here's the presentation to Captain George McAvoy. And all Canada should be mighty, mighty proud of the Penticton V's from British Columbia. 5-0, the final score, Canada over Russia.
What was the all sort of overwhelming moment you remember about that?
Standing at center ice when they raised the Canadian flag and played "O Canada." It just seems like your heart is going to explode. Your chest gets bigger and bigger. It was just fabulous.
It was wonderful. Right this very day, as a matter of fact, we took the cameras down to the Barley Mill Pub, which is owned by Larry Lund, and he's got the very flag mounted on the wall above the tables where you can sit down there.
That's right, he has.
Is it a thrill for you still to see that at this
It sure
stage?
is. And I take a look at some of the old pictures, like Larry's got a lot of nice hockey memorabilia around there, and it's really great. And for us all, gives us all a chance to look back.
So here are the headlines. Look at Penticton Herald does you proud. Welcome, world champs, and photographs. But then you start getting into other people's papers. Look at, here's the Vancouver Herald. Penticton versus champs, trounce Russians, 5-0. Canada beats Russians, says the Globe and Mail. V's win world title. South Porcupine's Ivan shuts out Russians.
That's
Ivan
right.
McClellan came from South Porcupine, Ontario.
That's right.
Canada, Penticton was Canada's team.
That's right.
Can you go anywhere to this day and say, I'm a former Penticton V? Did it carry any weight?
Oh, it sure certainly opened up a lot of doors for me, and I'm sure for all the rest of the guys.
What does the team do after it wins the World Championships?
There's only one way to go there, and that was, we all split up, and fellows went their different ways, and some people went into business. McAvoy went on to play several more years in semi-pro back east, had a good shot with the Montreal Canadiens. It's just too bad there would have been a little expansion back in those days, because there would have been at least a half a dozen other guys make it. And several people, guys in this Okanagan League, were just fabulous players.
Kevin, it has been a special thing for me to talk with you about this. Congratulations, and thank you for telling us the story of the Penticton V's ascension and victories. The cup is still in the hands of one of the Warwicks in Edmonton.
Billy Warwick's got it, yeah.
And is he ever going to bring it back home?
I have no idea what he's going to do with it.
All right. It's a fascinating story. Think of Canada. Think of all that we put into our World Hockey Championships these days. In 1955, it was a Penticton team that went to Germany and beat the Russians and was the world champions. See you next time.